Our dear friends who are listening remotely, we lost electricity and everything shut down. The whole house shut down. Now it's back up again because electricity went back on again. So we're back with you. And we're moving along now with a summary of chapters 4, 5, and 6. Summary, not just like an overview of flow. So we're speaking about material and effective cause. And I was giving the example of making clay pots. So in addition to the clay itself, there's the potter's wheel. And there's the tools that the potter uses to make the clay pot. So those are also material causes. But there's a remote cause, that's the potter, or the effective cause. And then there's supersoul that enables the potter to do what the potter does and supply the potter, the wheel and the clay and the tools. So
Recording in progress.
So he is the cause of all causes, that's supersoul. Because that's the question, how does all this connect with supersoul? Besides understanding how to make clay pots, the effective and material causes. So here, this is the Lord as the cause of those. The Lord is the cause of the potter. The Lord is the cause of the wheel and the tools and the clay. So the Lord is not those things, but at the same time he is those things, the oneness and difference. I'm pausing because there may be some people that don't know that the Achintya Beta Beta Tattva philosophy. Does your reading group understand that one? Okay, very good. Okay, and then once again, here we are, the universal form. The universal form has a way of showing up again and again. So here it is in chapter 2, Canto 2, chapter 6. Because it was there in chapter 1. And I don't know about you, but I know that it's not easy to understand the universal form. And then there's multiple descriptions of that same universal form. It's not what we read in Bhagavad Gita chapter 11. It's a different depiction of the same thing. And it comes again later in Canto 5, and it's a different description than all the previous ones, although it's the same universal form. It's not easy to understand it, and it's important to understand it because it keeps coming up. And Shukadeva Goswami isn't going to speak about something that's not important several times. Okay, so we've very quickly made a flow of chapters 4, 5, and 6. Now we're focusing a little more on 6. Some of you know the Purusha Sukta prayers. What are the Purusha Sukta prayers? They're prayers to Purusha, because Sukta is another word for prayer, and it's a prayer to Lord Vishnu, or Narayana, specific to the relation of the Supreme Lord to the process of creation, or that which is created. The cosmic manifestation. That's the Purusha Sukta prayers. Glorifies the Supreme Lord for being simultaneously one with and different from his creation. Everything rests on him, yet he is aloof. Now we heard that in Bhagavad Gita, didn't we? And now it's explained in greater detail in the Bhagavatam. And it's quite achintya. It's inconceivable. So we could describe it to some extent, and Shukadeva Goswami describes it a whole bunch. But again, it's not easy to understand. I mean, we can say, yeah, I understand it, but not easy to understand. So there's to some degree, the emphasis of oneness, and otherwise there's an emphasis on difference. By meditating on the Lord's universal form and by offering sacrifice with ingredients from the Lord's universal body, we're going to see this, ingredients from the Lord's universal body again. Tadangam. You have a Bhagavatam here, Canto 2? Can you open to chapter 9, text 31? Tadangam, or ingredients from the Lord's universal body. Brahma does his thing. From the Sarga comes the Visarga, the subcreation. Brahma takes the ingredients and he recreates the universe at the beginning of each of his days. So now let's try to understand what's being said here. At the end of Brahma's night, what happens? At the end of Brahma's night, there's a partial devastation. Not entire devastation, but it's pretty devastating. There's a long period of drought, and then things become really dry, and then there's a fire, and everything gets engulfed in water. There's a flood. And Matsya comes along and rescues the species and things like that. And then if the water goes all the way up to Maharloka. And above Maharloka is Janaloka and Tapaloka and Brahmaloka. Those three planetary regions are not covered in water. And everything else is covered in water. And so the cosmic manifestation is dissolved, most of it, every night. And then in the morning of the next day, here's what Brahma does. Brahma meditates on the universal form. It's like a blueprint for a contractor, something like that. He tells him, how the universe is supposed to look like. Not like he forgot, but that's the method that he uses. It's in Brahma Samhita, and here it is in the Bhagavatam. He meditates on the universal form, and by offering sacrifice with ingredients from the Lord's universal body, the ingredients from the universal form, Brahma recreates the universe, the part that got dissolved. Every day. He does his little sadhana, and then he goes to the office. Built the universe after meditating on the universal form. Every day. And he understands the connection between the universal form and the source of the universal form. We don't. It's not so easy for us. Brahma clarifies all of Narada's questions. That was the earlier chapter 4, along with Narada's questions about who is the Supreme. Because he knows, because he's had direct knowledge imparted into his heart by the Supreme. Very nice painting of Brahma. Brahma establishes that Krishna is that supreme creator. He is the sub-creator. He's not the creator. He's the sub-creator on behalf of the Supreme Creator. Unless one is aware of the Supreme Personality Godhead's position, one is sure to be illusioned by my powerful activities. I only recreate what he has already created. And what he has already created is the universal form. So what that means, in one sense, is the universal form is subtle. Don't go around trying to see the universal form, because it's subtle. Unless you're Brahma, then you can see it, meditate on it. But Brahma is creating a universe according to the subtle entity, the universal form. Till chapter 5 now. We touched on 6 and we're going back to chapter 5. Now, what's next? Chapter 7. The Lord accepts various incarnations. That's big leaf over there of the petal of the lotus. That's images of the different avatars. And similar to Canto 1, Chapter 3, similar to that, where the incarnations are described, because it was directly asked. Here it is again. It's just expanding further about incarnations of the Lord as they appear in this world. To maintain the universe, to deliver conditioned souls, to encourage his devotees living in the material world. His pastimes provide enjoyable narrations for his devotees to discuss when he is absent. Just like what we're doing, discussing the Bhagavatam and specifically the process of creation. But after the process of creation is all created, it was lots and lots and lots and lots of detail, but it's created, and now the Lord enters and does these things. He enters into that which he creates in different avatars. Moving along, chapter 8. Further questions. Parikshit asked questions that establish the philosophical basis of the Bhagavatam itself. Good question. Chapter 9. This is a very involved chapter. Shukadeva answers those questions, a basis of the Bhagavatam, to establish Krishna's supremacy. Shukadeva explains that all knowledge can be obtained by performing devotional service, just as Brahma did in the beginning of creation. So there's petal number 9. Brahma's creation is being depicted. It is, stepping back, not the details that were previously presented, but how did he get the capacity to do what he did? That's what's being described. Further inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit inspire Shukadeva Goswami to speak on Lord Brahma's conversation with the Supreme Lord. He had a conversation. They shook hands. Hey, welcome to the spiritual world. So that's that conversation. Within that conversation is these 4 essential verses, or 4 seed verses, or the Chatuh-sloki verses. There's 4-headed Brahma receiving knowledge from Krishna. Brahma is a famous example of a person who performed bhakti and got free from illusion. That's chapter 9, verse number 4. So he's a prototype, or he's a model for us to follow. He's the head of our sampradaya. He couldn't understand how to create. He was born on top of a lotus, and there was darkness in all directions. He didn't know what to do. But he used his reasoning faculty. I want to find out where he came from. Sitting on a lotus, let's climb down that stem, see where he came from. And he was climbing, and he couldn't find an end to the stem. He heard a splashing, the waves of the Garbadak Ocean. So he knew there was something, and it was intuitively, I came from whatever's down there, but he couldn't find the end. Then he heard, as we see here in these verses 5 and 6 of chapter 9, the 2 syllables tapa repeated. And he's really smart. He knew what that meant. So he climbed back up the stem, sat on the lotus. It doesn't say this in the Bhagavatam, but it says it in Brahma Samhita. He received mantra. That was his tapa. Oh, so it was for a long 1,000 celestial years. Not being able to see the speaker of those sounds, tapa, he still made up his mind to follow the instruction. He undergoes austerities for 1,000 celestial years. That's a long time. There isn't even a universe yet. There isn't a sun. So, anyway, time is measured by movements of the sun. There isn't even a sun. But we have an idea. It was a long time. 1,000 celestial years. The Lord, being pleased, showed the Vaikuntha abode. which is free from all dualities, free from the influence of the modes, time, Maya, etc. The Lord expresses his pleasure, shakes his hand, and invites Brahma to ask for benedictions. Pretty amazing, huh? It's just darkness in all directions, and he's for 1,000 celestial years doing what he heard, 2 syllables. For 1,000, we have a hard time sitting chanting 16 rounds. Brahma is a very special person. And the Lord was pleased with him. And so in this sea of darkness, he showed the Vaikuntha realm. And Brahma advanced, and as he advanced, he saw the Lord surrounded by all of his various potencies. The Lord rises to greet him like a friend, would greet a friend, and shakes his hand. I had some discussion with some learned devotees, and the discussion goes like this. The Brahma that's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, is in a relationship of friendship. And that is to say, when you receive someone shaking hands like that, that's the rasa. It's friendship. And over here is Brahma Samhita, where it says specifically in the verses and in the commentary that Lord Brahma was in the mood of conjugal love. It's 2 different Brahmas. Have you heard that one before? You have?
I heard so many Brahmas.
Okay. But besides different universes, different Brahmas, each universe has a Brahma. Anyway, whether it's different universes or our Brahma and then some other iteration of this universe that's the previous Brahma or something, there's multiple Brahmas and they're not all in the same rasa. So then comes the question, which one is our present Brahma? The one that had his hand shake, or the one that was meditating and he's in conjugal rasa? So we're searching, our scholarly devotees are searching for the answer to that one without any clear answer yet. But that's a detail. The Lord's very pleased. So those are verses 19 through 24 from chapter 9. And then 26, please tell me about your material and spiritual forms. That's Brahma wants that. And it's a very same question as Parikshit asked of Shukadev way back. So the answer is now being given by Lord Vishnu's conversation with Brahma. This is disciplic succession. And then the next 2 verses, how do you create? That's an interesting swan carrier, isn't it? Anyway, it's a nice picture of Brahma. How do you create, maintain, and destroy the material world by your energy? And how do you perform your pastimes? By manifesting your spiritual form. Same question that was in the previous chapter. So Parikshit has asked Shukadev this question, and Shukadev is answering by describing the exchange between Vishnu and Brahma. Please bestow your mercy so that I may carry out your instructions without lethargy and pride. Specifically, he wants to be able to perform the process. He gets it that he's supposed to create a universe, but he doesn't really know exactly how to do it yet. And he's asking for, please protect me from pride. Please protect me from the sense that, hey, I've created a universe. You know, pride in doing something. It spoils everything. And we do it all the time. I'm going to go cook breakfast. The doership, even when it's devotional service, the doership consciousness is, so he's asking for protection from that, because he knows it's a risk. Who can understand how intelligent is Brahma? He's not just like a professor at a university, or the dean of a department, or the head of all departments, the dean of all departments of knowledge. He's the original source of everything. Anyway, he's very intelligent. He wants to be free from lethargy and pride, ignorance and passion. Now, something that's skipped over is verse 31, because reference is going to come up to this verse 31 in the Chatuh-sloki verses, because that's what's coming next. The Chatuh-sloki verses are the 4 seed verses. But let me share with you what's in verse 31. Jnanam paramaguhyam me yad vijnanam samanvitam sarahasyam tarangam cha grahanam gaditam maya. So there's words that we're going to hear in the Chatuh-sloki verses several times. This rahasyam, Prabhupada writes in the purport, the mystery, and then he discloses what the mystery is. It's devotional service. Without devotional service, you can't understand the mystery. It remains a mystery. And then tad angam is paraphernalia. It's mentioned in the in the commentary to the Chatuh-sloki verses. It's going to be explained. Now, it's to be honest, it's very challenging to present this in a way that you can stay absorbed, because it's a little technical. So be patient with me, please, while I try to go through this very technical section of the Bhagavatam, where we get to the 5th canto. Whew. So here's the first of the Chatuh-sloki verses. They go 33, 34, 35, 36. Sambandha. Again, Sambandha Tattva. I think it's spelled wrong. Aham evasam eva gray. Celebrated verse. Nanyad sat asat param. Okay. Brahma, Vishnu is saying, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature. The cause of this creation, the material nature, is the material cause, remember? Like the clay, before you have a pot. So the material nature is a material cause. There was no material cause. There was only the remote cause. There wasn't even the potter, the Brahma. It was just Vishnu. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. I alone exist. It's another translation. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. I mean, this is a different translation. I'm accustomed to seeing the translation that says, I alone exist. During the cosmic manifestation, I alone exist. And after annihilation, I alone exist. That's the oneness. And then there's differences between the cause and the effect. The potter and the pot. And the potter's wheel. And then there's the remote cause, the personality of Godhead. All those things exist because of him, and he's one with them because they're from him, but he has a separate existence. So this is a very essential verse. You find this concept repeated many, many times triple, many, many, many times in the Bhagavatam. Because it's teaching there's one source of everything, and the one source of everything has everything within it, and then within it is manifest, and then it's withdrawn. But it's, in one sense, everything is Krishna, and everything is not Krishna in another sense. Okay. Ahameva agre. I alone existed before the creation, which says that the Lord is eternal in his abode, in his form, everything, associates, pastimes. He is a spiritual person existing in the spiritual realm, eternally not created. He's not a created. It's in direct contradiction to impersonal teachings. Brahman becomes covered. Nanyad yatsara sat param, that Brahman, which is superior to the effect and to the cause, is not different from me. You with me? You puzzled? Slightly puzzled. Sad asad. In this case, it's meaning cause and effect. It's there in Bhagavad Gita. There in Bhagavad Gita. One of the places that's directly there in Bhagavad Gita is in chapter 13. Krishna says, Sadasad yoni janmasu. Sadasad yoni janmasu. That in that case, it's meaning, good fortune, misfortune. Living entity is the cause of their good fortune. We have a cause, but there's the remote cause. And that remote cause, para Brahman, is superior to the cause and effect of this world. He's superior to the cause and effect of this world, but it's resting on him. You don't have a cause and effect of this world without remote cause. So he's remote. He's not affected by it, but it exists on him. In that sense, it's not different. Paschadaham yad etachcha. Even after the creation, only I exist. I exist as Bhagavan in Vaikuntha, Paramatma within the universes. Paramatma, again, in this sense, means not just the super soul in the heart, but Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and for that matter, Mahavishnu. That supreme Paramatma. And the various avatars, such as Matsya, etc., who come at different times. I exist. I alone remain at destruction. Everything is wound within him, and it rests for some time, and he's fully existing in both circumstances, during cosmic manifestation and after annihilation. He doesn't become full or empty. His potencies are expanded. Okay, and this is just the first of 4 verses. Not easy to do. All of this, any one of these can be several classes, and the whole thing can be a seminar. We're just doing it in zoom, zoom, zoom. It's little. It's okay. You're already up at 4th Canto, so you know all this stuff already anyways. Jiva Goswami comments, this verse gives the jnana or knowledge to know the Lord's personal form, which is far more confidential than the realization of his impersonal feature. That's Jiva Goswami's comment. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his commentary, this verse explains, the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, because it describes the nature of the Supreme Truth, Sri Krishna, who is like a transcendental sun, which eternally exists even after universal destruction. That's not this sun of this universe, that's a transcendental sun. The sun of this universe is existing because there's a transcendental sun. And there's a transcendental source of everything, including the sun and everything within the universe. Oneness and difference. Okay, that's the first verse. Now the second verse, Sambandha Tattva also. Pratirtam yad pratiyeta. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, artha, right? Appears to be of value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Now, I heard Rabindra Swarupa lecture on this for 2 classes. It took about an hour and a half each class, and we're doing it in 3 minutes. It's deep, in other words. There's a lot packed in it, and we're just touching on it, that's all. No, it, what's that? It. That which appears to be of value without relation to Krishna, that's the it. It's his illusory energy. Mayam. Tad vidyad atmano mayam. Atmano mayam. His illusory energy. That reflection which appears to be in darkness. Reflection in darkness. So, just take a regular example. You're driving in your car at night. And you look in your rear view mirror. And you see the headlight of the car behind you. There's no light in that mirror. It's just a reflection. It's a reflection of light, yes. But it's darkness everywhere, and it's just a reflection. So that which appears to have some reality or substance, existence, sat, that appears to be sat, that has no connection with Krishna, that's the Maya illusory energy. There is no substance. Tilt your mirror and the light's gone. If there's the substance is elsewhere. But if it appears to have substance, anyway, Ravindra has a very interesting way to explain this, but I don't have time to go into it. Pratirtam, when you do this, see that at the end, RH, I had to go through it many times and change the RH to M, because the diacritic with the M with the dot over it, when you paste it on, it comes RH. Pratirtam yad pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani. Whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Interesting graphic, huh? It's just a reflection. It's not the real thing. That's the idea. It has no real value. It has no real value. It appears to have value. It appears to be real. But it's a reflection of the reality. It has some existence. It's a reflection. And the reflection of the reality. So we don't see reflection of reality. We see reality. And anyone that doesn't is an atheist, if someone talks about the object that's of which this is a reflection, they go, "You're crazy. You're a dreamer. This is real. I mean, this table is real. If you say it's not real, let me clunk you over the head with it, and you tell me it's not real. It's real. And where's this table from which this table comes? Where's that one? And that's real, and this is not real. Come on. Get real." So, they're not ready for the Bhagavatam yet, such people. But those that are, we're trying to understand, however substantial this table appears, after some time, it's a pile of ashes. For some time makes it look like a table. Before that, it was a tree. Before that, it was the earth. Before that, who knows what it was. And then in the future is going to be something else. So it's insubstantial in that sense, in terms of time, because Sat means eternal. That's what's substantial, Sat. Not which is Asat. That's what's being discussed here. It doesn't say, it's not saying the table doesn't exist, or things of this world don't exist. It's just there's no ultimate value to them, ultimate value, absolute value to them. There's value in the elements that make up the table. They're eternal. They're Sat. And even when they're sometimes withdrawn, they're still existing, and then they're manifest and they're existing. So the elements are, the energies of Krishna are. That's Sat. It's sometimes manifest, sometimes not manifest. This understanding is more than helpful. It's essential to get to the eternal reality, to get to Krishna. We have to understand the temporary and its temporariness. We use it, but we don't call that's reality. In the absolute sense of reality. Behind it, there's the absolute reality. Have to be a little bit thoughtful, manishinam, or thoughtful, to enter into relationship with Krishna, because he can't be perceived through material sensibilities. Tad vidyat atmano mayam. There's Brahma offering his prayers to Krishna in chapter 14 of Canto 10. Know it as my illusory energy, it, as the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. There's a nice image. There's a tree on the opposite side of a lake, and there's a reflection of the tree. So the reflection is real, but it's not a tree. It's a reflection of a tree. So as the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance, the ignorance makes the reflection look real. And the illusory potency makes the reflection look real and substantial, although it's not substantial. Look at the full moon up there in the upper left corner. It's nice. It's a nice photograph. Okay, here's Jiva Goswami's comments on this second verse. This verse explains Vijnana, or the realization of the subtle science, the illusory potency, Maya, that occurs by the Lord's grace in order to teach the truth that his forms and qualities are different from matter. The Lord describes the qualities of the illusory energy, Maya. Look at that. Bhagavat Sandarbha. If you want to really go deeply, take a deep dive into what the Bhagavatam is teaching, start with Bhagavad Gita, try to understand Bhagavad Gita clearly, read the Bhagavatam, read it clearly, read it many, many times so it's clear, and then take the deep dive into the Bhagavat Sandarbha. Phew. It's really, this is just a little passage where he is giving a commentary on this Chatuh-sloki verse, number 2. To teach the truth that his forms and qualities are different from matter, the Lord describes the qualities of the illusory energy. So since you've already up to Canto 4, you certainly know about the meditation of Vyas. Right? Canto 1, chapter 7, beginning part. He sat in meditation and he saw this. He saw the Apashat Purusham Purnam, the Supreme Person in full. Apashat Purusham Purnam, Mayam Cha. He saw that Maya was behind the Supreme Lord, because if Maya is in between you and the Supreme Lord, you're just going to see Maya. But if he calls Maya, okay, Maya, go, move away, then you can see the Lord. So what's the relationship between Maya and the Lord? Maya covers our seeing the Lord, and we see the covering instead of the Lord. And bhakti encourages Krishna, please remove your Maya. It's an Upanishad. Please remove your glaring effulgence so I can see your form. Vishwanath writes, this verse explains about actions of Mahamaya and Yogamaya, the Sad Asad. Mahamaya is that potency by whose power real objects are sometimes perceived and sometimes not perceived through vidya and avidya potencies. This is Ishopanishad. Yogamaya is that potency by whose power objects are perceived and not perceived by persons who have realized the Lord. In short, Mahamaya covers the Lord and Yogamaya reveals the Lord. Except Yogamaya has her expansion. What's the expansion of Yogamaya? Mahamaya. Right? Right? The expansion of Yogamaya, or reflection of Yogamaya, may be a better word to use. Like when Krishna was going to appear, he summoned Yogamaya. She said, yes, some service. What is it? 3 things. What? Transfer Balaram from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini. Number 1. Number 2. Appear as the daughter of Yashoda. And I'm going to appear as the 8th son of Devaki. And Vasudeva is going to come and take me and place me by the side of Yashoda and bring you back here to the prison house. And Kamsa is going to try to kill you, but don't worry, you're my Yogamaya potency, you can't be killed. And service number 3. After he fails to kill you, then you go all over the place, and you take the form of Durga, and known by different names in different places. He's talking to Yogamaya. So Mahamaya or Durga is an expansion or reflection of Yogamaya. And they work differently. I mean, Kamsa didn't see Yogamaya. He saw Mahamaya. And Mahamaya threatened him. So Yogamaya is for persons who have realized the Lord. Mahamaya is for those who have not. And they're influenced by Vidya and avidya potencies. Okay, moving along. Whew. This is really heavy philosophy. So, the Lord's detachment from the world and his attachment for his devotees and Achinta Beta Beta Tattva. All this in the next one. Oh Brahma, please know that the universal elements, this is Brahma's sarga, the universal elements that he gives to Brahma, that he's going to build the universe with. They enter into the cosmos at the same time do not enter the cosmos. It's called double talk. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, at the same time I exist outside of everything. So figure that one out. It's the oneness and difference, which has already been introduced. Remember, this is a nutshell verse, or like sutra, like explanation. And what happened here? So you get the prayojana. Okay, we're moving along. There's the cosmos. Just as the universal elements enter into the cosmos at the same time do not enter the cosmos, that is to say, the subtle energies, they may become manifest, but when Krishna expands his elements, is he reduced? Om Purnamadak Purnamidam. You know that one? So he's not reduced. Everything is within him. When he expands, and it's not within him, but it's within him. So the elements enter into the cosmos, and they do not, because everything is within him. He's playing with his energies. Sometimes manifest, sometimes, but as the elements are manifest, he's not reduced. And it's a big universe. Look at that. That's one Milky Way, is what to speak of the whole universe. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time, I am outside of everything. Chapter 9, Bhagavad Gita. For this third verse, we're not done yet. Rahasya, remember text 31, we read the Rahasya, refers to Prema Bhakti, which is revealed to the perfect devotees who have the right qualifications to realize the subject. And Rahasyam is also in Bhaktivinoda's commentary. In the Chatuh-sloki, Lord Krishna stated that the pure devotees who are wholly dependent upon him realize the ever blissful object, Rahasya, that's this mystery, as it's stated in text 31, that's Bhakti, which is known as Prema. It is known as Rahasya also because ordinary persons cannot realize the subject. I'm going to keep moving because, again, this is like a whole seminar, a week-long seminar on every one of these topics. This is the fourth verse of the four. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this. What's this? In all circumstances, and in all space-time, and both directly and indirectly. Now there's a long purport, like a 4-page purport, and please read it, because I'm not going to describe it just now. A person who is searching after the absolute truth should search for it everywhere. Must certainly search for it up to this. Up to this means this connection with the personality Godhead through devotional service. Search not just by speculative, but by devotional strength, which is determined as the best by obtaining positive results through performance, anvaya, and by lack of results through non-performance, vyati rekha. Anyway, this is philosophical stuff, and it's just to start drilling down. We'll be here all night, so I'm not going to do it. Which can be performed in all circumstances and all space and time. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Fourth verse, commentary. Jiva Goswami defines tad angam, oh, there we are, text 31, as the necessary paraphernalia or means by which one may attain the confidential goal, rahasyam, pure devotional service or prema. The means is sadhana bhakti, to get to prema bhakti. Bhakti Vinod mentions that this verse explains the circumstances favorable for bhakti. He explains that there are two ways of becoming free of anarthas: directly by following the rules, and indirectly by following the restrictions. Now that's a different explanation that we've heard so far, but it's Bhakti Vinod's realization about both directly and indirectly. Whew. I'm exhausted. So we have our part. We have to perform conscious bhakti, conscious sadhana bhakti, in all circumstances, in all space, in all times. That's what is the takeaway for us. If you can't remember everything else, just remember this one slide. In all circumstances. Okay. Somehow that seems to be the end. One more slide. One. Okay, that's the final slide. That's the summary of chapter 9 and chapter 10. The details are not here, but there's 10 subject matters that are found in the very beginning, the first 3 verses, or the first 2 verses of chapter 10. And then they're explained further in the next 10 verses. And the main subject matters of the entire Bhagavatam is what's talked about in this 10th chapter. Because remember, one of the questions is, please give a description of this nice Bhagavatam. So he's explaining it to Maharaj Parikshit. Again, in the 12th canto, Sutta Goswami speaks what these 10 subjects are. The Sanskrit is slightly different, but it's the same 10 subjects. And we've already touched on 2, and it's going to be expanded further in Canto 3, Sarga and Visarga. Now, by now, everybody knows what Sarga and Visarga is. What Vishnu does is Sarga, what Brahma does is Visarga. Creation and subcreation. And because that was the subject that was asked by Parikshit, please describe how the Lord does this. How he plays with his energies. And the cosmic annihilation too. How he winds it up. Now, the details are not fully presented. More is going to be presented in Canto 3. And since you're already in Canto 4, you already passed through that, frankly, very complex section of the Bhagavatam. You've already passed through that very complex section of the Bhagavatam. Now you're back into stories. Canto 4 is like nice stories. Whew. So to do this in a summary way, it's you're very patient to sit and listen. And not easy to summarize something that's very intricate. So let's see if there's some discussion. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes almost, an hour and 15 minutes. You're shutting it off, right? Oh, okay, I got it. Anybody that's connected to this Zoom call that would like to raise a question?
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Venuprabhu, you want to?
We're having some technology problem. Hold on. Try again.
Venuprabhu, you want to have?
One more time. It was pretty ecstatic. Try it again.
Prabhu, you want to ask?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One of the texts explain that that which is not related to the Lord has no reality. Does it mean Maya?
Yes. Maya is real, but it's not what it appears to be. Maya is a real entity. This table is real. But it's not eternal. And therefore, asat. It appears to be, but it's not. It appears to be reality or of substance. Does that answer your question?
Prabhuji, does it mean it's not part of the Lord? Or?
This question is leading into the oneness and difference aspect. So if your question is in relation to the oneness aspect, there's a oneness between all energies and the source. So there's a oneness. And it's not. The energy is not the energetic. So the answer to your question is there's oneness and difference. You can emphasize the oneness, you can emphasize the difference, and they're both right. And a more complete picture is both simultaneously one and different. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Dhanavad Pranam.
We were discussing this one in linking to Bhagavad Gita verse in 10th chapter 39th verse. I was looking
10th
at that.
chapter.
10th chapter 39th verse.
Okay.
Prabhupada writes in it's a very small purpose. Whatever is not founded on the energy of Krishna is called Maya. That which is not.
Okay, Asat.
That's why Prabhu is asking if something not related to Krishna is Maya.
Yeah.
So Maya doesn't rest on Krishna. That's the confusion we wanted to clarify.
Well, does Maya exist without Krishna? Does a reflection exist without the object that's generating the reflection? Maya does not exist. The answer is Maya doesn't exist without Krishna. Not that Maya exists without Krishna. So it's Maya resting on Krishna, of course. But not resting on Krishna also because he's aloof. Krishna's aloof. Is Krishna aloof or is he in Maya? He's aloof. So both statements need to be made simultaneously, which sounds like, well, is it this or is it that? And if it's that, it can't be this, and if it's this, it can't be that. He's both. Simultaneously. Maya is resting on him, and he's aloof. Not resting on him. Just like this thing, the elements, the tadangam, the elements of creation, are both within the cosmic manifestation and not. It's not that, the question is a different question, but the principle is a similar principle. So, I would say, is the question, is Maya real? Does Maya rest on Krishna? Maya is real and Maya rests on Krishna. And asat. Not substantial. A reflection only. Now you see it, now you don't. Does that address the question or no? Okay. We're giving you a microphone to read it.
Mataji, you want to say? With Mataji, you want to read the question?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, I can. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful lecture today. Maharaj, you mentioned that there is Yogamaya and there is Mahamaya.
Yes.
And that Mahamaya covers Krishna while Yogamaya reveals Krishna. So I'm assuming we are under the influence of Mahamaya, being in the material world. So what should we do to be able to connect with Yogamaya? Should we pray to Mahamaya to connect us with or reveal Krishna through Yogamaya, or is bhakti the process that by which automatically Mahamaya gets out of the way and Yogamaya happens and then Krishna reveals? Or how should we understand what can we do to be influenced by Yogamaya or stay in the Yogamaya mode versus in the Mahamaya mode?
Sadhu Sangha. I have made a little pledge. When people ask how-to questions, I'm going to answer Sadhu Sangha. And by Sadhu Sangha, it means Bhajana Kriya. Because when there's Sadhu Sangha, you do with sadhus what sadhus do, and they do Bhajana Kriya, they do devotional service. Starting with Shravanam Kirtanam, and then all the other forms and expressions of bhakti. So, by the bhakti process, by the way, Bhakti Devi is an expansion of you-know-who, Srimati Radharani. And by the agency of Bhakti Devi, we're connected with the internal potency, or Radharani. And that gives us entitlement or access to the Yogamaya potency. So, while you're saying yes to Krishna, that is the sadhus with whom you're associating, they're themselves immersed in, or trying to become more and more immersed in, Krishna thought and Krishna's service. You do with those sadhus what sadhus do, and you'll be connected to the Yogamaya potency. And then what do sadhus do? So that there's the whole range of things that sadhus do. They take prasadam, and they worship the deity, and they offer prayers, and they hear the transcendental message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and they try to practically apply it in their everyday life while doing what they do every day. So by association with sadhus, you're going to be able to connect with the Yogamaya potency, and thus diminishing the influence of the Mahamaya potency. Sadhu Sangha.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Dandavat pranams.
Hare Krishna.
Thanks for a wonderful lecture. So it seems like, there's a need for me to surrender to the Lord multiple times in a day, throughout the day.
Yes.
To keep grounded and keep the energy and face the challenges, So what is it like? Need any quick quick recipe? Okay, do this. Like in the yoga world, they say take 5 deep breaths. Those are like more mechanical, but any quick way to surrender to the Lord quickly and
Sadhu.
and then recharge and then move on. A reverse question of what other Mataji asked.
There's no shortcut. There's no shortcut. There's how many lifetimes have we been involved in the illusory energy? Too many to count. And how many lifetimes will it take to get out of the influence of the illusory energy? Who can say? But we abhyasa yoga yuktena. We engage in practices that are exemplified by great souls, sadhus, and we keep in their company to get support. The quick is cut Khatvanga Maharaj, we discussed this in one of the earlier classes in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2. Khatvanga Maharaj achieved perfection in a moment because he got this benediction, I'd like to know when I'm going to die. It's, oh, you're going to die in the next moment. So he gave himself fully, but prior to that, you can be sure, there was sadhu sangha. There was devotional practice, so that he gave himself fully, heart, mind, and soul to the Lord in service. So there's no quick fix to that. Like relationships, there's no quick fix to relationships. Okay, snap my fingers. And so it's a cultivation, as we hear from Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion. Bhakti is a sort of cultivation. There's no quick fix to it. It's a cultivation, a gradual, successive steps in the direction of taking full shelter of Krishna, in the association of Krishna's devotees. So don't be impatient. Be patient.
Thanks, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for sharing this technical topic.
There's a button.
It's on. Okay. So the idea that anything of value that's not in relation to Krishna is not real. So at one level, if you think about it, that Krishna is the cause of all causes. So everything is in relation to Krishna.
Yes.
So when we think about anything that's not in relation to Krishna, it's actually thought.
Yes.
That is not in relation to Krishna. But
that's right.
So should we understand like the thought is not real, which is not in relation to Krishna, but in this example of table, it is coming from Krishna.
Yes.
We know that. So it's a thought that this table is not in relation to Krishna. That's not real.
That's it.
Yep. Is that it?
That's it. You got it.
Yeah.
100% you got it.
Hare Krishna.
Well expressed. Very succinct. Button.
Just to the extension of the reality and unreality to what Prabhuji was asking, can we also say that whatever is not internal or temporary is what we understand is unreal?
You're moving the microphone away from your mouth. You're hand gesturing with the hand that's holding the microphone.
Okay.
You have to concentrate now. Just keep the microphone by your mouth.
Sure. Can we understand the reality and unreality is whatever is not eternal or whatever is temporary is unreal?
No. Let's say the temple. Is that you're going to say the temple is unreal? It's definitely temporary. We're not going to say, or the deity form. We can say it's not real?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So there's seeing it as not connected to Krishna, that thought, that concept.
Okay. I have another question from almost the last slide, Prabhuji.
Okay, you got to keep the microphone next to your mouth.
Almost the last slide is about creation of the universal forms. I got confused with that last sentence.
This one?
Almost the second last slide. creation of the universal forms.
I don't know which that was. Do you know? Creation of the universal form. Towards the beginning?
Can you go to the end of the slideshow and just one or two? Yeah, that will be easier.
That's it?
No.
And that's the next to the last.
Or maybe even previous to that, I guess.
Okay,
3 or
so
4. So my understanding is the universal form is the actual form of Krishna, which is eternal, which is not created. But then the phrase or the sentence, when it said creation of the universal forms, is where I got confused. This is the one.
So now your understanding is the form, the universal form of the Lord is eternal, and it is His form. And then what's the second idea?
But then here, the creation of the universal forms, that means I'm thinking that it's not pre-existed, but it's getting created. If it's not the same, and where Lord Krishna always exists or eternal, why is the creation happening of the universal forms here? That's where I got confused.
It's Shatrupa's language. And I don't know if the Bhagavatam says that the Lord creates universal forms, but that's the language that's on the screen. That's causing a little concern. So it may have to do with the language that she created this PowerPoint. She gets the credit and she gets the blame. So again, the universal form is not an easy subject matter to understand. And in some places, for example, some places Prabhupada says it's imaginary. And some places he says it's Krishna's form, although it's temporary. Imaginary in the sense that it's temporary, just like the table is insubstantial, but it's quite substantial. I could sit on it, or I could bash it on someone's head, or something like that. Or we can burn it and make, cook some sabji or something. So there's energies there. Lord's energies are there in the universal form. And so it's substantial. It is the Lord's form, but it's temporary. In that sense, asat, or illusory. Now, the word that you're focusing on is this word creation. And it is a little confusing or misleading. I mean, I have to ask Satrupa to go back and edit this to be more precise. It's not that the universal form is an eternal form of the Lord, but it's temporarily manifest and then it's withdrawn.
Mm-hmm.
So the universal form is not created. The universe is created, but the universal form is not created.
Thank you, Maharaj.
She's apologizing. Nice catch. We could say the manifestation of the universal forms. Someone else over here?
From Canto 1,
Canto 1.
Chapter 13.
Can you hold the microphone by your mouth?
Yeah.
Even better if you take your mask down. Good. It's on.
So, in this, Maharaj, while reading the Bhagavatam, I got this question.
Speak directly into the microphone, please.
Yep. So here, the background is Dhritarashtra. He leaves the palace and goes to the forest. And then with the association of Vidura, he attains, in the purport, it said that he attains the liberation, but not the devotional service. the reason it was said that because he was envious to the Pandavas, that's the reason he was only achieved the liberation but not the devotional service. So that is the background. I have two questions, Maharaj. One is we often say that lava matrena sadhu sangha, once he is liberated. So when we say that, we mean that it's a liberation, not the devotional service. Is that what I should understand? Because even though he was in association with Vidura, who is a sadhu, I was thinking why he couldn't achieve devotion service. Though
He was too attached. It's you read the purports carefully, and you consider his circumstance. You know, there's this nice purport where Prabhupada is explaining there's different stages, and the Narottama stage is the topmost stage. And he wasn't. He was very qualified, but he had, was very tarnished or polluted or, covered with mixed other than the Nara Uttama consciousness. So he didn't have the eligibility. Now bhakti doesn't become less potent, but his ability to assimilate bhakti was less because of that contamination. So Vidura didn't encourage him to go for prema bhakti. He encouraged him to do what he could do, which was detachment. So he did it, and he did it. The lava matra sadhu sangha means the potency is there, but let's just take, practical example. How many people had a moment's association with Prabhupada, and how many such persons achieved prema bhakti? Doesn't mean that the potency wasn't there. It means their capacity to receive that potency was greater or lesser. And Vidura evaluated correctly that Dhritarashtra didn't have the receiving power to receive prema bhakti. So it's better just to encourage him to become detached, because otherwise he would carry the reactions for his past sins with him into his next life. He did lots of bad stuff. So become free and detached from that. That much Dhritarashtra was able to do.
Maharaj, the second question is, generally liberation means the soul merges into the effulgence of the Supreme Lord.
There's different ideas besides that one, however.
So then the ultimate, the destination of the devotional service, is it okay? Is it to understand that one goes to the Goloka and serve the Lord? Is that the understanding I should have?
Your question is confusing. If you're a follower of Lord Chaitanya, that should be the aspiration. Yes.
Okay,
but not everybody's a follower of Lord Chaitanya, and some of those persons may get liberation.
So I was just trying to distinguish between liberation and
I'm trying to understand what you're try to be very precise with your question, because it's hard to respond unless you are.
So how do we understand the difference between liberation and devotional service?
Oh, liberation is neutrality. Devotional service is beyond neutrality.
Thank you, Maharaj.
There's a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Lord Chaitanya says, I've come to deliver the 4 kinds of devotional service to Krishna. And the one that's left out is Shanta. Now that's not Sayuja, it's Shanta. because followers of Lord Chaitanya begin from Dasya. But liberation includes Sayuja. That's neutrality. And passive adoration is Shanta. So, you know, you get the idea. How about back there in the corner? You got anything? You're happy. Okay. Okay. I don't think the button is on. There's two ways.
There are two ways for becoming free of anarthas. Directly by following the rules and indirectly by following the restrictions.
Yeah, the vidhis. Yeah, the
How
shadas.
do we understand those?
You don't understand that?
I mean, I did understand, but how do we understand the details in the sense, what are the rules and what are the restrictions?
You know,
We can avoid only when we clearly know or understand the restrictions, but where do we get those, restrictions from?
what's the source of knowledge? Is that what your question is? It's in scripture.
No,
No, that's not your question.
restrictions are not to do's, right?
Yes.
Do's and don'ts.
Yes. Vidhis and nishetas.
Correct. Is there any
do's and
particular
do nots.
reference?
You want to know where do you find a list of the do's and do nots?
yeah.
That's your question?
Yes, Prabhuji,
Oh.
Maharaj.
The manu depends on where you're beginning your bhakti life. Supposing you have not begun bhakti life yet, then you go to Manu Samhita and you'll find all kinds of things, do's and don'ts. And then there's karma kanda, do's and don'ts. And then if you become a bhakta, if you become a follower of Lord Chaitanya, let's make it easy for you. It's Rupa Goswami's teachings. There's offenses to be avoided, and there's 64 practices of bhakti. There's the do's and the don'ts. Nectar devotion. That's where you go. Okay?
Maharaj, I have 4 questions.
You're on.
The first one is just for understanding, not for any devotion or anything. In one of the slide, you mentioned 1,000 celestial years Brahma meditated.
Yes.
So, how many days of his 1,000 celestial years?
You want to know how you calculate numerically?
So the actual question is, so is he not doing anything in those days? Like,
Oh, he's doing
generally
something
he
day
does
and night.
creation.
He's doing something. He's doing tapa. And his tapa is mantra chanting.
But not creation at that time.
No.
Okay.
There's nothing. It's just darkness.
So he's actually 100 years he did not do creation and
He's
annihilation.
doing 100 years meditation. He's had a long japa period.
That was a technical. Thank you, Maharaj. The other one is when we are talking about Purusha Avatar, Purusha Sukta confirmed.
Yeah.
Is that because in Bhagavatam there is a discussion about Pradhana also.
Yes.
From that everything comes, and
But that's the material cause.
so the Purusha is a spiritual cause.
Yes.
Pradhana is a material cause.
Yeah.
So from Pradhana everything, all material comes out. Is
Yes,
that understanding
yes.
right?
But yes, that's correct. And that pradhan is also an energy of the Purusha.
One of the energies of the Purusha.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. The third question is, you talked about the pride.
Mm.
So, how do we recognize or understand pride when we are doing service?
Oh, you forget Krishna. And it's all about yourself.
Because especially I'm trying to understand how to identify that when we are doing a service in the name of service.
You forget Krishna. And you know that there's the illusory energy is working, and so karta aham iti manyate. Pride is working. False ego is working. They're not identical. Pride and false ego are not identical. But someone who has false ego has pride. Someone who has pride has false ego. You forget Krishna. You're at the center. You're the doer. That's the symptom. You're looking for characteristics or symptoms. That's it. And it's, we have pride. We have that sense of doership. Even in bhakti, we have it. It's a carryover from our material contamination. Very common. Let's say it the other way. Someone that doesn't have a doership consciousness, very rare. So we all have some pride. We all have some doership consciousness. We take ownership of, I did it. It's common. It's common language and it's common consciousness. So you want to know the symptom. That's the symptom.
Because generally when we do the service, when we are doing the service, you don't think of any of these things because you are working. But right after the service, as you said, kartaham, it comes.
Well, it's there. It's operating while you're doing it also. That is to say, take a flip and say, what's the consciousness of a person that isn't thinking of himself as the doer? Or what was the consciousness of Srila Prabhupada as he was spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world? Not sometimes, but all the time. He was an instrument of his spiritual master, and felt always he was there. It's a very elevated state of consciousness to be always free from the sense of doership, but instead being the sense of being the instrument of. I'm looking at this beautiful painting. There's one of the principal gopis there playing a musical instrument, and she's looking at Radha and Krishna for their pleasure. So somebody else could be playing a musical instrument and thinking, practicing and practicing and practicing and get good. But she's not just expert at playing, she's expert at the love for Krishna. That's where there's no doership. And that's where things are spontaneous. And we're not there yet. So we strive to expand our the bhakti principle, and that way become in the mood of service rather than the mood of doership. It's night and day difference. Even when doing devotional activity, we're carrying that darkness with us into the realm of beginning devotional practices. Very rare that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the one who actually knows me is very rare. Even of those who have achieved perfection, one who knows me is very rare. Okay, next.
Last one is when in the Chatuh-sloki verse, Krishna said, I only exist before annihilation or after.
Yes.
So when he says, I only exist, when everything is taken out, where the living entities, are they going back into Krishna's body? Or
yes, they're in a susupti state within Lord Mahavishnu's body. They're there. They don't come into existence or go out of existence. They're there in his body, in a suspended consciousness state.
In that sense that we are part and parcel of the Lord. We are inside of the...
Well, you're part and parcel, inside or outside or flying around. We're part and parcel.
Because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, there is no time you don't exist.
Yes.
So here it says, I only exist. So
But he only, that is to say, this is the oneness aspect, where as the Father and the Son are one, although they're different.
Correct.
The Son is one with the Father in one sense, and they're different in another sense. It's the oneness and difference. When he, so I'll say it, try it again, because you're pausing. I only exist. The energies exist. The living entities exist. Para and apara prakriti exist. I alone exist. But there's his prakritis. And the Purusha doesn't exist without his prakriti. I alone exist. That's the oneness aspect. At the same time, there's difference. So he's emphasizing in that verse the oneness aspect. I mean, the Mayavadis love that verse. They dance.
Yes.
See, it's one. Okay, just let this come.
Maharaj, I have a question.
Anything you two over there? No. You're patiently listening, though. That's really good. Is it going way over your head? Yeah, are you able to follow? Yeah, good. Okay. Go ahead. Last question.
Was this?
You have the honor for the last question.
Hare Krishna.
This is the last question.
Hare Krishna. I was actually reflecting on the pride part and the doer part. So if we think about our body doing something which we didn't create, it got created. There is a source. We got the eyes, all the senses, and then when we think about maintaining the body, we get oxygen free. Without our effort, we breathe. Without our effort, the plants grow, the food is supplied. Without our effort, the food is digested. So all of that we can see Krishna is a source. There is a higher power. We are not the doer, even neither in creating the body nor in maintaining the body. So if we are doing any service, then we are being the instrument, and we can see the whole creation